Hey there, TouchDesigner developers. Jack Delora here with another TouchDesigner tutorial. In this video, we're going to take a look at a new effect I'm calling geometric displacement, which allows you to take any 2D top texture like some noise, run it through a feedback loop with some displacement, and generate these pretty cool geometric style effects. I'll just show you a couple of different kind of color variations of noise here to show you what that effect can look like. Another cool thing to note here, if I run this particular noise through it, is that it kind of holds the general position of most of those colors in place. You can kind of almost abstract that original image with the effect, and that also means that it's really useful for working with more like traditional photographs or other real-world imagery instead of just generative visuals. So with that, let's jump right in. So let's start off by grabbing a constant chop, which we'll use to set some resolutions of some operators we're going to add in a minute. I'm going to name the first channel here to Res X and set the value to 1280. And then the second channel I'm going to add is going to be called Res Y, and we'll set the value there to 720. We'll then grab a movie file in top to bring in a sample image. You can use noise or whatever you want, but I'm going to just grab one from the sample images folder. So hit the plus on the file parameter, and then I'm going to grab the Trillium image. After that, come to the common page and change the pixel format here to 32-bit float. That'll be important for our displacement feedback effect that we're going to work on later. And then we'll hook this up to a fit top just to make sure that if you ever use, say, an image that's at a different resolution or aspect ratio, that we can always make sure to fit it within this resolution we're setting up here in our constant. That'll be important because we're going to generate some other stuff below that relies on that resolution and aspect ratio. So within the fit, come to the common page, and we'll make a chop reference from those two channels. If you chose an image, for example, that was maybe a square resolution or something else, make sure before you move on to change the fit mode to something that allows it to kind of fill that entire screen space that we've set up here. I'm going to hook up a null, and then we'll build another network below this, which is going to generate a displacement image for us. So we're going to start off with a noise top, and again, we're going to set our resolution based on that chop. So we'll make a quick chop reference from those two channels. We're going to set our pixel format here to 32-bit float again, and then on the noise page, all we're going to change is our seed value, which I'm going to set to 7005. Our next operator is actually going to come from the palette. So go ahead and click on the image filters folder up here, and we're going to grab pixelate. Drag that in and connect this to the noise top we just laid down, and then we can close the palette because we don't need that anymore. Within the pixelate effect, we are going to come to the pixelate parameter page, turn on square pixels, and set our horizontal pixel size to 110. You should get this kind of a look. We're going to connect that to a lookup, and then we need something to connect to the second input of the lookup, and we're actually going to use a ramp top for that. So we'll put our ramp top here, and we'll start by connecting it, and then we're going to make some settings changes in here. So first of all, let's set our resolution, make sure we're consistent once again. I'm going to make some chop references. And then, of course, we're going to set our pixel format to 32-bit float. And then to modify the colors and the color keyframes within this ramp, we're actually going to approach this via the table dat instead of through the kind of normal color keyframe picker within the operator. So let's look at our table here. We're going to add a couple of things to this. We actually need to add 2 more rows below row number 1. So let's right click on that row 1 and click add below twice. So we get 2 blank rows. And then in the first row, I'm going to set the green value to 1. And I'm going to set my alpha to 0.1. And then in the second row, we're going to set a position value of 0.499. A red value of 0, a green value of 1, a blue value of 0, and finally an alpha of 1. In the third row, I'm going to set a position of 0.501, a red channel of red, a green value of 0, and a blue value of 0, and finally an alpha of 0.8. In our final row, I'm going to leave the position alone, and then we're going to leave our red channel at 1, we'll set the green channel to 0 and the blue channel to 0. And finally, the alpha will be set to 0.1. And that should give you a ramp that looks like that. So with that, we can actually close that and maybe tuck that away. After the lookup, we're going to attach a level. And within the level, we will set our contrast value to 0.9. And then we can attach a null to that, and we are actually ready to generate our simple feedback network that is going to appear above here. I'm just going to kind of scoot these back a little bit, and now we can begin the feedback network. So let's attach a feedback top to the null, null1, and then I'm going to lay down a keyboard in chop now so that we have an easily accessible way to reset this feedback at any point. I'm just going to make a chop reference to the reset pulse parameter here. And then while we're in the parameter window for the feedback, we also want to make sure that we set our input smoothness to nearest pixel and our viewer smoothness to nearest pixel as well. That's going to be important for this particular type of feedback that we are trying to generate here. After that, we're going to connect a displace top, which we'll scoot over here. And we're actually going to connect this null2 to that second input. And you'll see that's already started some weird effects occurring for us. We do need to make some changes though within that displace. So let's first of all change that vertical source from blue to green because we only have red and green in our displaced image. And then we're going to set this displace weight value for both of the settings here to 0.001. And finally, our extend mode to repeat. Then we're going to come to the common page here and set our input smoothness to nearest pixel as well as our viewer smoothness. We can follow that up with a null. And then we'll build a quick second branch from this original null1, and then we'll hook those things up to a composite. So for that second branch, I'm going to middle mouse click on the output of null1 and grab a level top. And we'll drag that and place it under the displace. And within that level top, we're going to set on the post page our opacity to 0.01. So we're going to get an almost completely transparent version of that Trillium image. After that, I'm just going to hook up a null. And then we're going to connect both of these nulls to a composite. Actually, we need to, in this case, we need to connect the null number 4, which is the almost transparent image first, because we need that to be composited over top of this branch that's connected to our feedback top. So go ahead and do that. You just want to make sure that again, that null number 4 is on top of this one that we see the Trillium in right now. So after that, we're going to set our operation to over. And then before we get the feedback loop started, I'm just going to hook up an RGB key, which is going to have the same effect as compositing a black background in, which isn't really necessary for this particular texture, but if you use one with transparency, you may need to do that. And then finally, I'll just hook up a null to the end and turn on the display flag so we can see this kind of start from scratch. So now that that's all hooked up, we've actually completed our effect. And if we drag this composite into our feedback top to get everything started, you can see that we're now generating a cool abstracted geometric version of that Trillium image. So, like I said, that actually completes our effect here. And what we can do to kind of wrap up is show a couple of ways that you can modify this network to continue kind of exploring with this effect and see, some further applications of it. So if you wanted to get the exact pattern that we saw in the intro of the video, which is a little bit different, it has some areas that look more like they're isolated squares. That was accomplished by modifying settings within this ramp top. And so what I'm going to do here, just to make it easier, is I'm going to copy and paste this ramp top, and then we'll make some modifications to the second one here so that you can still have the original one if you so choose to use it. So I'm going to take that second ramp top and connect it to the lookup, and then we'll come within this ramp to keys dat, table dat to make some changes. So there's really not going to be that much different, but these subtle changes will cause some not super dramatic, but maybe some more subtle changes in our final output. First of all, in this first row, set the alpha to 1, which should give you a solid green band on the left of that ramp. And then finally, or actually not finally, but next we're going to set our row number 2 position to 0.4, which shifts that back a little bit to the left. And then for the third row, we're going to set our position here to 0.6. And then we're also going to reduce this opacity value to 0.5. And we are then going to leave the fourth row the same. And with that, we actually have the exact effect that you saw at the beginning. And you can see just by making those subtle changes to this ramp, we're getting some different output. Like now we have those kind of isolated squares that we saw in that first version. And if we close the parameter window, you can just see how that is giving us even a little bit more geometric sort of a look going on. So that is definitely one of the places that I'd recommend experimenting. Just see what you can do with the ramp operator. Another operator I'd recommend looking at is the noise top. The noise top, we didn't really do anything other than modify the seed parameter, and you can actually get, again, quite a few different changes from messing with any of the parameters here. But even just the seed parameter itself, if I set that to something like, I don't know, 150, you can see that the pattern that we're generating now is totally different, but we're still kind of getting the general like same aesthetic, just sort of applying things in different locations. So play around with that noise top, and then you can also come to the pixelate top here and or comp and change, the horizontal pixel size, which will give you a different kind of look. Again, we have a level top, which modifies that displaced image output just ever so slightly. And then of course you can always run any kind of image that you want into this network and get that same effect applied to any number of different generative visuals. So there's actually a ton of room for you to continue exploring with this effect. So that is it for geometric displacement. This has been another TouchDesigner tutorial. As usual, I am your host, Jack DeLaura. Make sure that you hit the like and subscribe buttons below to keep up with the latest tutorials that I am posting here on YouTube. I've got quite a few different TouchDesigner tutorials in the works, which will be posted soon. If you'd like to keep up with me on a more day-to-day basis, you can follow me on Instagram at Jack DeLaura. I tend to post experiments and other potential future video content there. With that, we will close out the video. Just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.